Welcome to Sam's Business Growth Show. I'm Sam Dunning, a digital marketing, sales and business growth evangelist. Tune in and subscribe today as I'll be interviewing business leaders, experts and entrepreneurs from around the globe. You'll be learning their story, how digital marketing has helped them along the way, and exclusive tips and insights to help you skyrocket your own business. Hi everyone, and welcome back to a fresh episode of Sam's Business Growth Show. I'm delighted to be joined by Kate Lewis today. Kate's the CEO and co-founder at E4Enable, and she's also the 5 on Friday, one of the UK coaches. Kate's been in technology sales for over 20 years now, most of which in leadership roles. Her experience goes from 0 employee startups to multinational PLCs. Her first startup was when digital marketing wasn't even a thing, so she's using fax machines and snail mail outs. E4Enable is driven from Kate's passion for sales, coaching, development, built with the frustration of how organization-wide efforts fell, a haphazard and a non-existent in the first place. Kate, a very warm welcome. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks, Sam. Good to be on.
Excellent. Good stuff. So looking forward to chatting with you today. As always, we'd love to know a little bit of your background, Kate, so a bit more about kind of where you grew up, some of the key businesses you've worked at, and if we could sneak in a few actionable tips along the way, be it a sales tip, marketing tip, or just business in general tip that you learned. And then we'll jump into learning a bit more about your own business, how you've built that up, and some of the recommended strategies you've got for gaining new pipeline, gaining new customers, be it digital or be it offline. But if we could start with learning a bit more about yourself and your background, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm a plastic scouser. If you don't know what a plastic scouser is, I'm from the Wirral, so the other side of the Mersey, born and bred. Sometimes when I've had a few, my accent slips back into my Scouse accent, but I've been around the block. So I started my career accidentally, I think, like most people in sales, in Fujitsu. Actually, at the time, I applied for a logistics role. Well, it was ICL at the time. I applied for logistics, and they wrote back to me and went, "Nah, you don't want to do logistics. You want to do sales." And I just at the time went, "Okay," so joined their grad program. Worked there for a couple of years. Travelled the world to get that out of my system.
Nice. Was that while selling or?
No. I decided after a couple of years at Fujitsu to quit and just get that out of my system because I'd always wanted to travel. So never be afraid to do that. I think it gives you some real life experiences and sets you on your way, something chronic. I then ran a business with my brother and family for 10 years, and I exited that when I had kids, just to go my own way.
Okay, what was the business doing, Kate?
So this takes me back to those fax and snail mail days. So the business started out as an e-commerce development organization and web design company, right? So we're talking 1999. This is me showing my age now. So this was pre everybody kind of having a website. E-commerce was just taking off, and we were specializing in sort of small organizations, getting them on their journey to web, and then throughout that journey migrated into the NHS and doing tracking and online systems for the NHS, which eventually took MSoft to the journey of doing, would you believe it, blood tracking and sample tracking throughout the NHS. Wow. So some really serious stuff in hospitals, and is still doing very well in that today. So it was a great 10 years. I did so much in that 10 years. Sales and marketing, running support and dev teams, doing the selling, managing the selling, all manner of things as you would expect in a startup at that stage.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, especially being the same arena that I'm in. So started as kind of websites, e-commerce, and then progressed to getting clients like the NHS. And moving on to stuff like blood tracking. So was that just a case of the demand came in? So you picked up these clients and then they kind of said, well, look, we need help with these systems, and then it moved on to that stuff, or?
Yeah, I think actually that marries to something I've learned all the way, and something I learned then, and that's just being really interested in your clients. And when you're really interested in a topic and you're really interested in solving the challenges, that takes you on a natural journey. So
Yeah.
I was interested in taking people online.
Okay.
And that obviously started with having conversations with, I don't know, car dealerships and local restaurants and organizations like that. But that passion of how you do that and the journey you take ended up working with NHS trusts and local authorities on how they make their journey to taking advantage of what online and the internet could do for them.
Awesome.
And so that real interest in your customer, in their problems was just a massive lesson for me.
Got it. And is that just, in terms of when you say being interested, Kate, is that just having good conversations, asking the right kind of questions, just to understand how the business works, what they're actually interested in terms of their own goals from a business perspective, and where they want to get to sales and revenue wise and that kind of stuff? Or is it something a bit different?
I think it's twofold. I'd summarize everything you've just talked about into the word curiosity.
Okay.
Being genuinely curious and not afraid to go, why do you do that? And if that doesn't happen, what else happens? And does that happen every time? Or is there occasionally when that doesn't, just genuinely a natural curiosity for elements? And then if you can find a passion with what you sell and how, and how you solve those challenges that you uncover, or those goals and alignment, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling bricks or you're selling postcode software or tracking systems or e-commerce websites, it's about understanding from your curiosity how much that means to the customers you're talking to. And if you can make that connection and make it internally, then you can drive the passion for what you're selling. And those two things coupled together genuinely show to your clients, and they'll as much buy into you as they will into your product, your solution, your company.
Got it. Awesome. No, that makes perfect sense. And so we talked about on your intro that we're using some traditional techniques, so faxes, snail mail, and stuff like that. Is that how you're acquiring clients for that company, Kate?
Yeah, God, we used to do fax outs. So like lots of you will know kind of mass mailings. We used to take a really targeted audience and do something like, there might be a local authority that was doing a grant for helping people get online or do something digital. Or there might be a case study or something. And we would literally do an automated fax out through companies. And if they were interested, they'd fax back. And even though we were doing, e-commerce and websites and everything, that was the communication, because it was the way that our clients were communicating with us, because they hadn't yet taken that step into that journey. So again, just a really interesting way of doing things, but I haven't seen sight nor sound of a fax machine for many years now.
No, that's it. Okay, and then that went on for about 10 years, and then did you say the business got acquired or got sold? Or?
Yeah, no, I exited the business, so the business is still running. I exited the business because I was, at the time, I'd had my second child and decided to go and do something different. So I launched out of a very small kind of niche company into then a very big company. So I then went into Experian.
Huge company. All right.
Experian, absolutely. So big global player with, again, a whole lot more to learn in terms of the differences in bootstrapping, in running things yourself, in doing lots of things, into running into a multi-departmental global paper processes, red tape departments, all of that kind of complexity that came with that new role.
Were there skills that you could transfer that you picked up from running your own business for 10 years or so that you could move into a massive giant like Experian?
Yeah, I think probably self-sufficiency and that curiosity and passion, bringing that to it. But that self-sufficiency, not ever expecting to be spoon-fed or have somebody else do it for you. And that can be a little bit of a blessing and a curse, because in some ways you have to wait for somebody else to do it for you in a large organization. But just getting on with it was a huge benefit, I think, to moving into that avenue.
Yeah, got it. And was it mainly sales you were doing at Experian? Was it a sales-based role or management-based role?
Yeah, sales and then management. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And are there any tips you could share for people tuning in terms of what you picked up from that side of things, in terms of perhaps on sales management? Is that something we'd sometimes like to cover? in terms of lessons learned or unusual strategies that you found have been quite useful to be able to manage sales teams? As we know, it's not always easy to manage salespeople, as they can have a mix of kind of high egos, or they can be difficult to tame, and all these kind of cliches we know around sales reps.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the first thing I would say is don't always think that you have a linear path into management. So, I'd run a company for 10 years and recognized to move into a larger organization, I needed to do something differently. So I stepped back into direct frontline sales, and then was able to rapidly move forward into management because I was able to kind of use my skills. So it isn't a linear path into management at all. The second aspect I would say on the management is it's not for everybody. It is not the be all and end all of what you think your next career step would be. And that sort of falls into one of your questions there, Sam, which is like, we all know that salespeople can be challenging. You have to want a passion for developing and tapping into everybody's individual goals, what drives them, overcome, help them. You have to realize and go from a quota bearing role where it's all about you to a management role where it has to be all about them. To be successful. So you've got to want to do that, and you've got to have that kind of passion and drive in you. And again, it's not for everybody. So be aware of that when you're moving into that role.
Just on that point, Kate, so I've talked to some people and they've had different ways of motivating their team. So for example, we had Morgan Ingram on a while ago, and he said that he would speak to reps and he'd actually say, look, how do you like to take feedback? Do you like me to be direct? Or do you like me to be a bit softer and kind of give you more long-term goals? Or different ways of talking to different people. So we'd actually understand how they'd like to take feedback, be it negative or positive, and then work with that on that way. Or did you have your own ways of kind of dealing with each person, or did you have certain strategies to give people feedback, or to kind of, if they weren't on target, for example, to perk them up or to give them a motivation boost and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, my first thing would be, one size does not fit all. Gosh, that's a fundamental thing in terms of motivating. So for me, it was all about finding out what motivates each individual. And that is then how you tap into that conversation. Because if everything comes back to what is it that you want to achieve, not what I want you to achieve, my targets are pushed on you. That's just saying that you've got to hit a target is not what's going to motivate you to do so. Understanding why you want to hit that target, what's in it for you, what's important for you, is unbelievably important for me, certainly, and it's always been my style. If I can tap into that, then that's the journey, the path that I'll take for each individual, and almost the feedback drives off that. Now, yes, their personality comes into it. I found with some people I can have really blunt conversations, like, I need to tell you how you're perceived in this business, because it's impacting your ability to get to where you want to be, and your why and your goal. Yeah. And you may not be aware of that because too many people before you haven't even cared enough to go into that level of detail, versus others that you can just go, I know you want to achieve that, so I'm just going to feed that beast, and they'll go for it. So it's, peel back the layers to understand the why, and don't listen to the first why. People get taught to regurgitate what they think they ought to say. My why is I want to buy a Rolex by the end of the year. Okay, why is that important to you? What does that make you feel? If you fast forward to a year and you got that Rolex, how would that make you feel? Is there something driving that behavior? Is it something you've always wanted? Because more often than not, you'll find that people just say what the person next to them has talked about, or what they think salespeople ought to be. Sure. And we've got to realize that salespeople come in all shapes and sizes, and different things motivate them. And motivation by money or big shiny objects is not actually for everybody. It might be for others that they've got something to prove, or that they're self-driven, they're competitive with themselves, or they just want to be unbelievably proud of what they've achieved, or they want a career move. Yeah,
it sounds like just digging a little deeper, really, not taking everything for face value, and then just getting to the kind of root of why they want it. That's a great point. Never really thought of that like that. It's interesting. In sales, we get taught all the time to probe our clients or prospects for what their problems are, to really look at the implications and ask loads of questions. But very rarely do we get taught to do that with people in our team, or how we coach people.
And I'd say the same type of skills, that curiosity and that passion is just as well sort of brought into coaching and sales management as it is into sales itself.
Great stuff. Okay, so after Experian, was it NCC Group? Was that the next one?
I took my leap into the world of security, and that is fascinating, and that's something you can get massively curious about. Interesting world for salespeople, because you're selling to massively brilliant subject matter experts. So you have to know enough about what you're selling. You have to be curious enough, but you also have to know that you're worlds apart from the person you're talking to in terms of their knowledge about their subject matter. And so that teaches you to delve into kind of like the questioning areas really uniquely, I think, in that.
Okay, so this was it a new sector for you, security, at the time? Something?
Yeah, I mean, from Experian, you get an opening to it because data security is hugely important from that perspective. So the kind of data confidentiality aspects, but the technical aspects of it was new to me. It's a huge learning curve. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah, it sounds well above my head. I mean, in terms of that side of things, if someone tuning in is thinking of going into a new industry, or they have just started in a new industry that is perhaps very technical, or there's a lot to it, or it's something they don't quite understand, have you got any tips, Kate, on how they can break into it and how they can perhaps not sound like they're an amateur or something with their prospects? Is it just about asking more questions, or is it about asking the right questions, or something a bit different?
Again, comes back to curiosity and not being embarrassed. I see too many salespeople sit in a room and just think, oh gosh, I should know that acronym, so I'm not going to ask. You're much better. You won't sound stupid if you just say, sorry, can somebody just explain to me what that means? I'm not quite sure. I spent ages just when I first joined thinking PCI, what's PCI mean? Now Google is a wonderful thing. Obviously you can Google it, but I just should have asked in the first instance. Yeah. So there's that, but also rely on the people around you. Gosh, learning from your peers, learning from your pre-sales, they are brilliant. And I'm generally more than happy to spend time explaining things, running through things, letting you shadow them. And that's where I picked up so much of mine, both, from NCC and then when I went into Avecto, just sitting within them and asking loads of questions and being that annoying person that just was wanting to dig deeper into what they were talking about.
Great, yeah, great piece of advice. I mean, one of the reasons I started this show, so I could learn from everyone that comes on, share that with the audience, pick up plenty of tips on sales, business growth, and digital marketing along the way. So if you've got that within your organization, you've got people that already know the stuff, that are already doing well, be it in sales, be it in leadership, whatever, might as well mirror them or get the info from them. That makes perfect sense. Okay, so the next step was Avecto. And then we had Beyond Trust after that. So I mean, kind of moving forward a little bit faster, are there any more experiences before we talk about E4 Enable, Kate, before we shoot onto that? Are there any more experiences that are worth us discussing, be it lessons learned in sales or marketing or business in general, before we go on to your current co?
Yeah, I mean, culture is a huge thing for me. And I think Avecto was one of those organizations that just had an awesome culture. It had the space to allow their salespeople to grow. It was supportive. It had an understanding that things can take time, even though there's obviously pressures on the number, and really tapped into believing in and buying into their salespeople. So put an enormous amount behind that, and I would pick culture probably over market, over anything, any day when I was selecting an organization to go work for. I think that's my biggest lesson that I would say, and something that I just loved every single minute of kind of my Avecto Beyond Trust journey. Okay,
so why do you think culture is so important? Because it's something we've not talked about too much on the show just yet.
Why do I think culture? Well, it taps into your own personal motivation. It's somewhere where you spend an enormous amount of time at work, and we can't all do wake up one morning and do the thing we're passionate about and swim with whales every day because that's what we've always wanted to do as a child. It's not something that is available to everybody. And so the second to that is the culture, the people, the organization you surround yourself with. and understanding enough about yourself and understanding the type of culture that you want to be surrounded by, it enables people to grow and accelerate their growth. And it is a massive acceleration factor. So if you can get that alignment right, then the world's your oyster in terms of that organization, because it will really fuel you.
Got it. Is that something you've tried to put in place for your own company in terms of the culture side of things?
Absolutely. And a lot, again, that I learned in my days at Vector and Beyond Trust, leading with coaching, leading with a coaching culture, being realistic about expectations on people, listening to the whole person, not just thinking they're a number. All of those things are hugely important to us.
Great stuff. Okay, well let's move on. Let's talk a bit more about your current company now, E4Enable. Kate, share with us a bit more about why you decided to take the leap and go off on your own and start your own company, and talk us through kind of how it was setting up, and if it was easy, if it was a smooth ride, or if it was quite a tricky thing to take the leap.
Yeah. Okay. So it was born out of a passion I've got. So I'm passionate about coaching, passionate about a development culture, passionate about moving forward and not salespeople not just being a number. The problem is that's really, really hard to do at an organizational wide level. You'll find individuals will coach. They'll coach in different ways. They'll coach to different things. When you invest massive amounts in training, is there a structured coaching program that sits off the back of that? Are you able to drive the results you're looking for? It's just a myriad of spreadsheets and Word documents and emails and finger in the air, hope and a prayer. And that's always massively frustrating. And I've been on the personal end of that frustration. I've delivered training and then thought, right, what happens next? Nobody's actually taking this forward. How are we going to change that? And I couldn't find something that suited myself and suited what I ideally want. So the only option available to me was to create it. And again, it was something that I was hugely passionate about. So everything that went into, here's what I would want as a senior sales leader, as a VP, to drive a culture of coaching and accountability and performance improvement across my business. So E4Enable was born, essentially.
Great stuff. Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like something you kind of saw a gap, and you also, it's kind of like scratching your own itch. It sounds like the pain that was there, and making it happen from that.
Absolutely. And we took the leap, but in a very bootstrap way. So the platform was in development and in beta for a year before I took the leap and went full time into it. And then from there, it's really been growing the brand, growing the awareness for the brand, utilizing digital marketing, social media, digital channels to kind of get the message out there. All in the wake of a global pandemic, which has been super. Didn't plan for that. So that's a lesson in crisis management, and how to react with that. But pragmatism has played a huge part in that. But for me, it's just all the way along the belief and the passion in, again, making a difference to my clients, being really curious about what they're doing and how we can help them on their journey. And in doing so, that bleeds into the people in the team that we've taken on board as we've built the business out over the last kind of 12 months. So
great stuff, and glad to hear it's going well. So in terms of starting, Kate, did you have a list of clients ready to rock and roll? Were you kind of building something up on the side whilst it was going on, or did you go in fresh and think, I'm just going to hit it from the ground running and try and generate business this way? Or did you have kind of a plan before you went all in?
We had a couple of beta clients, again, that were organizations we knew.
Okay.
That were very aligned to kind of my way of thinking, and they were able to beta it before I then went lock, stock and barrel. So learned a lot through that process. And then that realization that everybody needs this, and that real belief fueled then me driving in, and then I don't think, if I look back, we didn't have a list of potential prospects and clients, but we did have a very, very clear, identified customer profile. So we knew our buying center. We knew what a perfect customer would be. We knew the challenges that would be looked at from different lenses within that organization, whether you were talking with somebody from sales enablement, sales training, a senior sales leader, an SDR leader, somebody in sales ops. We had a very clear picture of each of those kind of personas and, like I say, the organizational perfect fit. And in doing that, we were then able to craft how we went to market to target each of those, both personas with the right messaging, but also the organizations.
Great. Okay, so you sorted out your ideal customer profile. You nailed that down a tree, it sounds like.
Nailed it.
So how did you go about targeting them? How have you gone about generating pipeline? Perhaps you could talk us through some of the offline strategies that have worked for you, and perhaps some of the digital ones as well, Kate, that you've had success with.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very blended approach. So in terms of brand awareness, LinkedIn and social media is a huge one. You know, I wouldn't say I have a personal brand per se, but I've always been very vocal around coaching, enablement, you know, and a different way to lead salespeople. And I voiced that on LinkedIn. I've got involved with various things, whether it's doing podcasts, whether it's doing 5 on Friday, because that really marries to my ethos of coaching and development. So it was around kind of evangelizing the message without talking any features whatsoever of our platform as a technical platform. It was all about the challenges we solve and getting into that common way of thinking of our client and triggering a reaction. So social media and brand awareness there. Digital marketing, we've done a blend of paid for advertising. So okay. Again, super targeted. So looking again at that buying persona, at the type of things that they're interested in, even the type of groups people follow, and understanding that will trigger the right response and interaction. So very, very targeted with the right media and interest to create those inbound strategies for leads.
Was that like LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads or Google ads or a mix perhaps?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Google. LinkedIn, they're at an earlier stage of their cycle because it might be that they see the white paper and think that's interesting. Sure. Google, they're a little bit further down the lead cycle because they're saying, I am looking for this. And that's where they start seeing those. So we see a slight difference across both the size and the impact of and maturity of those leads. But as I say, we do Google, we do LinkedIn, and have quite a targeted strategy on LinkedIn. And then we've done email as well. So again, targeted email outreach. We started pre-COVID. We put a pause on that actually, and have changed our focus, because at the beginning of COVID we were then, just before the beginning of COVID, we then blended that with an outbound program through some SDRs.
Oh, right, okay.
So that meant that we could be much more personalized in our outreach rather than looking at kind of mass sequence standardized email, which it has mixed results.
Sure. And is there one channel, Kate, that you'd say is giving you the best success in terms of opportunities, in terms of leads?
Yeah, I'd probably say the blend between the LinkedIn very targeted ads, but with a very good follow-up from our SDR team to tailor that and qualify and take them to the next stage of that journey.
Yeah, can you give us a quick snapshot of what your follow-up process is once a lead comes in from LinkedIn ads? Just a quick idea, because I know we could talk about it for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So our call to action on LinkedIn is generally to download a white paper. That white paper is very, linked in, if you like, to our way of thinking, and generally is something around sales competencies or leading and lag indicators, and some of the research that we're able to produce from our platform. Within 24 hours, they'll have a follow-up from an SDR, but not on we're trying to sell you something, very much on what piqued your interest. We're interested to be on this journey. What else can we help you with along that journey? And then ultimately that will go into a kind of cadence that will, or a sequence, not of an automated email, but of a keep in touch contact, to make sure that we're aligning to the buyer's journey where they are in their kind of cycle versus where we want them to be. And that's a clear distinction, I would say.
Got it. No, that's interesting. Not many guests that we've had on have actually mentioned LinkedIn ads. We had it mentioned a long time ago, so it's good to hear that it is something. It is a channel that's working well for you, and also on the white paper side of things, because I think sometimes they can be kind of real good opportunities, and others, like you say, they could be lower down in the buying cycle.
Yeah.
They need to be worked a bit more, nurtured, and distributed
they
content
do.
over time.
Absolutely. But it gives you the opportunity to start building a relationship really all in that cycle and start influencing the outcomes. You know, the last thing that you want to do is be invited into an RFP. You're way too late. But if you can be influencing the thought process of what goes into that RFP 3 or 6 months earlier, you actually start influencing the way people are thinking and the things they think must be in that RFP. So I'd much rather be on a journey with our prospects and understanding what they're trying to achieve and map to their process than I would to try to squeeze them down a standardized funnel.
That's interesting. And did you say the cadences or the emails follow-ups that you send them are more personalized rather than kind of templates that are...
Yeah, they're not templated. Yeah, they're not templated. We've been down that route. It doesn't look pretty, I would say, and you end up with, you know, multiple people in the same organization getting just a very samey outlook. So I'd much prefer them to be personalized, not to the extent where everybody's spending 3 hours researching to get one email at the door. That's crazy. But you can create a hyper personalized approach in 5 minutes by looking at just having your key things that you're looking out for within something. And if you can't, keep it really brief.
Sure. Makes sense. Get to the point.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Kate. Well, we've covered some good ground so far. For anyone that is tuning in, that is thinking of going out on their own, that wants to start their own business or their own company, have you got any words of wisdom or any golden nuggets of advice that might help them in their early days?
Yeah, keep the goal in mind, but run every day as its own day. Don't get hit by the ups and downs on a daily basis, otherwise you'll go stir crazy. You know, keep that belief in play. Seek feedback consistently and constantly, I would say, and don't be afraid to go where your journey takes you, rather than, you know, having I will not deviate from this path. Would be some of the things that I picked up perhaps along my career.
Yeah, sure. That's some good tips. And when you say feedback, do you mean from your customers, your clients, or from your team, or both? Everything,
everywhere you can get it.
Get it all.
Clients, absolutely. Prospects, hugely.
Yeah.
But you know, I'll get feedback from my SDRs as much as I will from my co-founders or board members. As much as I will from you know, colleagues and mentors that I've had in previous roles. So yeah, definitely.
Cool. And before we wrap things up, Kate, let's talk a little bit about 5 on Friday. So for anyone that's not heard of that yet, can you give us a quick snapshot of what that's about, how it helps, and maybe a few things that you've learned or that other people have learned from you guys doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 5 on Friday was built by a concept by the US. And they wanted to bring it over to the UK because it's been hugely successful out there, and give the opportunity to really coach and develop salespeople and hone their skills, and give a kind of safe place where they can access training and coaching without it costing anything, or without you know perhaps their organization being in a position where they can put this on. So I've got my kind of co-hosts, Costas and Alex. And we will have guest coaches on as we go, but we've seen some great, you know, SDRs from people who are 3 weeks into the role and already looking to seek feedback and grow and develop, right the way through to people who've been doing it for a couple of years, and we've got some people coming on in the future that have been doing it longer than that. So it's just a really good opportunity to get different perspectives, but it's something that, you know, we are really passionate about, which is given the opportunity for people to learn and grow.
Great incentive. Yeah, really, really good. How can people, if anyone's tuning in that's interested in having that coaching, how can they get in touch, Kate, or how can they apply to go on 5 on Friday?
Okay. Yeah, so you can reach out, you know, just send me, Costas or Alex a message via LinkedIn. Go to the 5 on Friday LinkedIn page, or go to 5onfriday.live to apply via the website.
Sweet. Okay. And Kate, is there one thing that people or businesses should be doing with digital marketing that is going to help them generate more pipeline from today?
For me, it's about being targeted and getting your audience right. Digital marketing is absolutely fantastic, but know your audience and craft content and approaches that your audience want to consume and will resonate with, rather than a scattergun approach. Would be probably my biggest piece of learning that I've worked through.
Love that. Yeah, targeting is very, very important indeed. Well, everyone, you've been tuning into Sam's Business Growth Show, where we sit down with business leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs from around the globe. We find out their story, how digital marketing has helped along the way, and their exclusive tips and insights to help you skyrocket yourselves and your business. Kate, we'd like to ask everyone that comes on if you could thank just one person, either dead or alive, having a positive influence on yourself and your career. Who would that be and why?
My dad would be the person that I would label that. He always taught me that you don't have to have the glory. It's you can help and support others to achieve their glory, and that's as rewarding as achieving it yourself.
Really like that. Awesome. Kate, tell us a bit more about your company and the best way people can get in touch with yourself and how they can learn from you and connect with you.
Yeah. Absolutely, thank you. E4Enable is a technology platform that helps organizations define, develop, and measure what good looks like. So define the right sales competencies, develop them from onboarding, through training, through coaching, through mentoring, and then measure the leading indicators that's impacting so that you've got a clear ROI. They can reach us at www.e4enable.com, on LinkedIn at E4Enable, Twitter at E4Enable, or just reach out to me directly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. If you've enjoyed the show, please do subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you catch your podcast. We interview tons of business leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs from around the globe, so feel free to subscribe. We'll end the show there. Thank you very much, Kate. Are you tired of constantly hunting for new customers? You could be missing out on regular inbound opportunities, all because your website isn't on the first page of Google. Perhaps you're already spending lots of money on advertising, but your website is failing to convert all of your hard-earned visitors into a consistent flow of new customers. If you'd like to learn more about our unusual approach that brings ideal clients straight to you, connect with Sam Dunning on LinkedIn or book a free 20-minute consultation via webchoiceuk.com. That's webchoiceuk.com. Subscribe today for more digital marketing, sales, and business growth tips from the experts.